Buford Mobley, the godfather / administrator of the Soccer Parent Lifestyle, one of Facebook's largest soccer parent groups. With over 40,000 members, Buford has spent the last 7 years plus quarterbacking and moderating a group that brings all of the soccer issues to the table: playing time, pay to play, pathway, recruiting, gear, diet, camps, and more. Be sure to join the group on Facebook to help manage your own journey through youth soccer as a parent. Like, review, follow, share our show. We'd appreciate it, and be sure to go check out our YouTube page for all our episodes there as well. Let's go. Hey everybody, what's up? JB here on at the time of this recording, actual rare sunny Friday afternoon in February in the Lou. Want to get another episode going here, and this time I've got a friend that's going to come on here in just a little bit. He's zooming in, I believe, from the southeast coast, somewhere in that region. We'll find out exactly here in a little bit. You've already read your dashboard. You're going to learn a lot about a large group, a support group, a therapy group, a resource for all things soccer parents here in just a little bit. I wanted to just real quickly get a couple thank yous out the door. Just really in general, this is one of those almost like a holiday Hallmark card. Thank you. All of you listeners, thank you. The numbers keep going up. We're just really dumbfounded by the interest, and we appreciate all the support. If you could just take a second and, if you haven't already, like, review, follow, share, any of those things, it really just helps us continue to get these episodes out there to you, to the masses. Sounds super official, but in all seriousness, thank you for listening. I'm going to be doing this one solo today because my two buddies, my partners in crime, as I've stated in previous episodes, they have those daytime real jobs. We were going to do this one because my guest today, he too is self-employed and entrepreneur. So all of our clocks are a little bit fluid. So we're going to do this during the day. I wanted to point out real quickly some of our previous episodes and the feedback we're getting. One in particular, it is episode 201. I forget my own episode numbers here. Andy Fleming. Andy Fleming's out of Cincinnati, Ohio now, born and raised in Boston, was a Division I coach at Xavier, assistant at Northwestern and a couple other programs. He brought Xavier to national prowess within the Big East, and has since gone off independently into running his own camps and, most importantly, focusing on recruiting and placement. Within that episode, this is not a PSA. This is not an advertisement for Andy Fleming Soccer, because Andy is a referral-based individual. He doesn't have a team. He is the team. He is, and his asset is his Rolodex and his vision. But go listen to that episode. For all of us that think, whatever we think we know about the process of getting our kids into college to playing college soccer, or where they fall, or where they rank, or what the process is like, or what schools are worthy of their attendance and or other. A lot of it is just theory. And I think Andy, in our conversation, he just gets right down to brass tacks, things to think about, things to look at. Historically, as I just stated, it's episode 201. We've had a lot of episodes, and there are a handful of episodes in which we get private messages of people saying, "Hey, I like that story," or "I love that guest," or "I didn't know about that." This one, by far, takes the cake. We have had the most inbound inquiries and comments about the episode than we ever had. So just let that be fair. Not fair warning, just a message that if you have any interest in that subject matter, go check it out. So, with that being said, without further ado, I'm going to bring my guest on here, and we're going to dig even deeper into the psychotic world of parents and soccer and sidelines and more. Buford Mobley from the Soccer Parent Lifestyle, probably the preeminent Facebook soccer family group out there. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, JB. It's an honor to be here.
So I like the term. I use the term often. Put a little pin in the map. Let's just get a little geography, a little background out of the way. Where does this call find you today? Where's home, man?
Okay, I'm in Cary, North Carolina, right outside of Raleigh.
Oh my God, Cary is a mecca. There's like three cities in this country that are true soccer meccas. St. Louis, obviously, Kearney, New Jersey, and I would say Cary, North Carolina is right up there. So,
Yes.
so you are. So let me ask you the question: Are you a Carolina Blue or a Duke Blue Devil fan, or other?
Neither.
Oh, there we go.
Neither. I grew up in South Carolina, and my wife and I are alumni of Clemson University.
Oh, Tigers. Nice.
Yes.
So you have, I'm just going to kind of set the table a little bit here. You are the administrator, you are the creator of the Facebook group page, and I'm just going to read it direct Soccer Parent Lifestyle. I'm looking at it right now. You have basically 40,000 members in this group. Um,
Yes.
Give me an idea of how far back you started the page and what was the initial impetus to do so.
Okay. Well, actually, I started another group initially back in about 2018, maybe, um, called Youth Soccer Parent Life. And I had a partner at the time, and we kind of went our separate ways. And I went out and started the Soccer Parent Lifestyle in June of 21.
Okay.
So that's where it started. But back then in 2018, when I decided to kind of dabble in the soccer business, uh, well, let's go back before that. Just a little bit of background about me is I
Sure.
never played organized soccer. Wasn't involved in the game in any way until my son was born.
Okay.
Um, he was born in 2004 and started playing when he was 5 or 6. So about 2009, 2010 was when I first got into the game. And
Did you raise him there in the Cary area?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes, we moved up here by then. So
Cool. So
um,
obviously soccer clubs, youth clubs, all over the place there, high level.
yes,
And he got into the game. And what initial take? Because somebody that grew up in South Carolina, went to Clemson, I gotta assume you're probably a football, basketball guy, maybe
uh,
baseball. Soccer wasn't on your
football is
radar.
king at Clemson. Although we've always had a great soccer program, even
Absolutely.
back in the I'm dating myself, back in the '80s when I was in school.
Well,
We won our first national championship about '87, '88, maybe.
so I'm gonna name drop here because he was episode, I don't know, maybe early 100s, and he's a good friend of mine. But Chuck Nash was on the, I believe, the first national championship team there at Clemson in the mid 80s. Good old St. Louis boy. So he would have been one of yours. He would have been walking around. If you saw the guy walking around in a Budweiser T-shirt and ordering Emo's pizza from afar, that was Chuck Nash.
That was probably you describing half of our student body there. So
So you move up to Cary, your kid starts playing, you get into it. Um, walk us through kind of the introduction into the game for you personally, and then getting up to 2018. Why the impetus, the desire to create this format?
okay, well, my son starts playing and he starts playing soccer. Of course, being a former football player, I always expecting to play football. Um, but he did the things the soccer, basketball, t-ball.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my son, when he was little, he loved to run. He ran everywhere. He didn't walk anywhere. He ran. And t-ball, he could care less about hitting or fielding. All he wanted to do was hit the ball off the tee and take off running. So on this t-ball team, the last guy that went up to bat got to run all the bases. So he always requested to be last because that's what he wanted to do was run.
Yeah.
But we got him into soccer and he just took to it. It was something he loved. And so my wife was probably a bigger soccer fan at the time than I was. Um,
Well,
You know, I was
she's
still home.
thinking he doesn't have to put on all that gear and get his head busted up. No, for
Yes, and
you.
I'm thinking that's what he should be doing. So,
I love it.
but but anyway, you know, he gets up, and about the time he's maybe U8, U9, you know, I notice he's pretty good at this soccer thing.
Hmm.
And you know, he'd go into the backyard and play for hours, you know, not pushing whatever. And my big revelation came, I believe it was U12 year. Um, went to his first big tournament in Charlotte, and they were playing. And uh, at the time, the team my kid was on was basically a kickball team.
Yeah.
You know, they kick it forward. The fastest kid, who happened to be my son, would go and chase it, and you know, he either score or kick it in the woods or wherever. You know, it was a crapshoot, but
we've all
he was the
been
one who
we've all been there, man. We know exactly what you're
he
talking
was the
about.
one who scored the goals. You know, they just kick it to him, and so we went to this tournament, and he played pretty good. But I happened to wander over to another field, and it was kids the same age, but you know, in the top bracket,
Yeah.
and it looked like they were actually playing soccer. And you know, I was like, well, why don't our kids look like that? You know,
Y-
I mean,
Yeah.
they, you know, these kids are the same age, but it's like they're playing a totally different game. So, you know, I asked some of the other parents, and of course, you know, they had no clue. You know, I went to the coach and said, well, you know, why don't our kids play like these kids? And he was like, well, those kids are better than our kids. I was like, well, that's obvious, but you know, how does my kid get to play with those kids and play real soccer? And never got a satisfactory answer. And you know, I went to the club and it was like, well, you know, there's obviously another level out there, and I think my kid is capable of playing that level. You know, how can he get there? And they, you know, really never got any satisfactory answers.
So let me ask you, because I kind of want to tie all of this into what I view the page doing today for so many other parents at that time, because what the story you're telling exists across the country, even in massive soccer markets like ours. And it's not that Cary isn't, as I stated earlier. Obviously, soccer is prevalent in the Cary area. Um, when you were kind of given a non-answer, as far as inquiring about pathway or improvement or a better, better development, etc. At that time, not being a soccer person, what were you thinking? Like, what was your next step? How were you going to kind of fix that issue, in real time?
Well, in real time, it was just a lot of frustration. So, you know, I basically took it upon myself to learn about the soccer landscape. I mean, you know, at the time I knew nothing about U.S. soccer. You know, my soccer knowledge was just my son playing on this team
Mm-hmm.
and going to that game and watching that game you play. That, you know, before I went to this tournament, I had no idea that other kids his age were playing at a much higher level. I
Right.
mean, I simply wasn't aware of how big youth soccer was, you know, not coming from that world.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when the frustrating part to me was when I found out about that world, I was like, well, how do I get into that world? And, you know, nobody that we were around were giving us an answer. And, you know, just for context, the club that we played at back then, it was called Castle. Um, and uh, we, my son played at Castle from like U8 to U11. And then we had a bad child experience when he was moving up to a classic level. So we moved to Triangle Football Club, and he played there as U12 and U13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then U13, Castle and Triangle Football Club merged to become North Carolina FC, which is the behemoth we have now with about 15,000 kids.
Yeah.
But so I basically just took it upon myself to go and research and learn about all the levels. And of course, by this time, my son was coming up U12, U13, and going into full field soccer. Uh, we found, I found other opportunities like ODP. Um,
Right.
when so he started playing ODP, and that's really when things took off. Um,
So I'm doing a little bit of math here. You were talking '04, so U12, U13. We're getting into that 2015-ish time frame,
yeah,
2016. He starts to integrate into obviously what you view, what we all know to be, higher level, coming from maybe a club that isn't developing players via ODP. You're looking at other clubs. Let's talk about the why to create the group. What did you learn, or what triggered you between, let's just say 2015 and 2018 of starting the page? What was it between that time frame that made you say, you know what, I want to lean more into this and I want to create a Facebook group, and my mission statement is blank? What did that look like?
okay. Well, I started out just writing a blog about youth soccer. Um, I didn't really have any plans. I was just, I said, well, if they're parents like me, and I feel this way, there got to be a lot more. And I knew that, my teen parents, they didn't really know anything and couldn't help me. And like I said, I was at this big behemoth of a club,
Mm-hmm.
which was very regimented, and I felt not really responsive to parents. I kind of always had a love-hate relationship with the club. They did some great things, but there are a lot of things that I disagreed with. But I had sense enough not to push the issue because I didn't want to negatively affect my son.
Well, I think what you're describing is literally a universal truth at every single soccer club across this country. Um, I the one thing I really want to talk about or ask early on here, this idea you talked about. You started a blog, and in looking at the website, thesoccerparentlifestyle.com, within it, it's a pretty straightforward website. You've got resources on there, but you've got the blog link up top, and then what really kind of struck my radar here and looking through it is the publications. You're a writer. You got a number of books out there, and the one that stands out to me for obvious reasons is the title of the book is "Shit an Old Soccer Dad Says." Um, so talk a little bit about the what blogging meant to you, why you did it in regards to your kids' soccer, or maybe the soccer landscape in general. What were you trying to achieve, or was it just fun, or both? Talk about the writing.
Well, I really wanted to help other soccer parents who were in my situation, that knew nothing about the game.
Hmm.
Um, of course, by that time, I learned quite a bit. But I was like, well, if I'm like this, I know there's got to be other parents out there. And it was kind of a leap to think that, maybe a little arrogance or whatever, to think that soccer parents are going to listen to a 280-pound black guy who never played soccer, you know talk
Oh,
about
hey,
raising,
only in America, man. Only in
yeah,
America.
talking about raising soccer players. But I guess I was either foolish enough or arrogant enough to think that people would listen. And um, then I started a Facebook page called Scholarships for Soccer that I still have.
Hmm.
And mainly I just did like funny memes and things and build an audience. And then about 2017, 2018, Facebook decided to introduce the groups feature. And I thought, well, there's nowhere that I can go to get questions answered. So why don't I just start one?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started a group. Uh, Never did any advertising. Everything's been organic and flowing to it. And that first group I started uh, is now probably about 50, 60,000.
Okay.
Um,
What was that page?
it was, well, originally it was called Scholarships for Soccer. I think it is, they've changed the name now to Youth Soccer Parent Life or,
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm I'm familiar because I'm in that one too. That's
okay, well,
67.
that's the original group that I started.
Got it. Um, okay, well, so let's talk about that. You Soccer Parent Life. You started that one. It came from the scholarship individual page. You turned it into a group.
Yes.
Was it, like in all things business, was it a simple matter of partner? No, now we can't be partners, and they kept that page, and you started the new
Yes.
page.
Yes. Uh, I brought on a partner who owned a business in the soccer business,
Okay.
um, and mainly I thought it would help my credibility. I was a little, maybe a lot insecure about whether people would listen to me, having no big background in the soccer world. So I brought on a partner for that reason, and we we didn't, came down the road. We didn't see eye to eye. So I said, well, I'll just start my own.
S-
And
Well, you seem to be pretty proficient at it because if you started the first one and then obviously the massing and the momentum has carried that one to 67,000 members. Your current are you the sole kind of operator of Soccer Parent
yes,
Lifestyle?
yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
mean you got a group of 40,000 super niche specific members, that being soccer parents. They're here for one sport in particular. Um,
And
m-
oh, I'm sorry.
no, no, no.
One of the
Go ahead.
one of the main angles that I think is an advantage that I have is that I'm not a past soccer guy. So I don't ever present myself as the expert. I don't, especially in tactical areas of soccer.
Hmm.
Um, of course, I'm like every other dad. I think I know all the technical
You're a Monday morning quarterback. I get it.
yes, technical tactical aspects of soccer, but I know enough to know that that's not what I focus on. What I focus on is the problems that soccer parents have, that when they go to a coach or DOC, a lot of times, when you go to your club, first of all, there's always that tension between parents and the club.
Right.
Um, when you go to them, and it's hard, a lot of times it's hard for parents to really talk to coaches and clubs about sensitive issues. Um, you know, One thing I've never talked to the club about was playing time. I never went to my kids' coaching about playing time. I always went to him from the aspect of what can he do to get better and do what you need him to do.
Isn't it funny though? Like I'm 1,000% with you on that. But if we're really being honest with ourselves, and you see it all the time on the page, I hear it on the sidelines all the time. In reality, the number one issue, forget about money. The number one issue for the vast majority of parents, if you were to guess, like if an angry parent starts walking up to the coach, what's the first thing they're going to talk about?
Playing time.
Playing time, right? How, why, what do you think that maybe set you apart mentally to acknowledge that that wasn't your priority or that wasn't your issue? Um, you know, talk about a little bit of your own self discipline, and that's literally what I'm going to call it. It's self discipline to be able to like really focus on these other things that had that were not about the minutes played.
I think it's being a former athlete. I played, football, basketball, baseball, all through high school,
Mm-hmm.
and did not play in college, but just being a former athlete, knowing that you know, and feeling that playing time should be earned, just coming up through that lens, and trying to be as objective as possible when looking at my son. Um, you know, well, you see it on the sidelines. You've always got that one parent that thinks that their kid is the next Messi, and he may be good, and a lot of times he's terrible.
Yeah.
But you know, the hardest thing for a parent to do is look at their kid objectively, and you know, tell what their strengths and weaknesses are, and that's a big priority of mine in my group, trying to educate parents, you know is realizing that you can't be totally objective, but at the same time learning to be as objective as possible.
So I want to ask you about the moderation aspect of the page because along right, yeah, I love it, man. In line with what you're talking about, the conversations that we know occur between parents and coaches about playing time, and you hit it on the head. The inability to be, objective, is just it hurts. It hurts the process a lot. When you get these posts, well, let me ask you first just a technical question. Anytime somebody goes to the page, because sorry, I didn't read the rules completely, but when somebody posts on the page, is every post approved or are they automatically uploaded and then subject to being taken down later?
um I put, when I started the group, I didn't have post approval. It was just put it in. But lately, I well, in the last 2 years, I put on post approval simply so I could. It just saves me a lot of time from an administrative standpoint to not to have to scroll through the group and
Yeah.
delete people. You know, the one of the biggest problems in running a youth soccer Facebook group, of course, you've got all these coaches that are in the business and what have you. So, I mean, I deny 10 posts a day from coaches coming on, and they've got a summer camp, or they've got a coaching session, or
All for
they
sale.
yes, they've got this, they've got that, and I understand it. I'm in the business, and the way I usually handle it is, if somebody is providing value to the group, and teaching people things, I'll let them mention their business in a post, or even post an advertisement. But I get, just today I got two coaches that came in. I approved them for membership, and the first post they had was they were advertising their camp.
Yeah.
And usually I'll delete the first two of them, and if they keep doing it, then I just kick them out. But
Yeah, I mean, well, you've grown it to a point where these coaches, these clinics, these recruiters, these podcasters, those dirty podcasters, they want access to your 40K. Um, so look, I, I want
and
to,
I understand that,
yeah.
and that's fine. I mean, I always approve your posts when you're putting your podcasts in, because
I'm
it.
trying to educate, man. I'm trying to entertain and educate.
Well, exactly. But and I'm in the soccer business.
Yeah.
I do this for a living now, so I understand. I post in other groups, but I try to post educational posts before I ever post anything for sale.
It's almost like there needs to be more of a quid pro quo approach from these coaches and these clubs. I mean, they gotta realize, like, it's not a spam page. You're trying your best to keep this thing to be educational and engaging and to a degree entertaining. But if it turns into just the yellow pages of soccer camps, that's not. It seems as if that is not your intent. There's a format
No.
for that, but it's not on the page.
And like during Black Friday, I have a week every year where I invite all soccer businesses to
Post.
advertise their service, for Black Friday week and things. And um like I say, I have probably 10 to 12 people that I consider knowledgeable experts. And I've given them that expert badge, and they have free reign to post whatever, because I know that they're educating people.
Do
You know,
you?
as,
So do you have a dipshit badge by chance? Because we'll be the first. We're about the attention.
no, I don't.
It's just a
You know,
suggestion then.
have a lot of dipshits, but I don't have a dipshit badge.
So hey, you know what? That's a perfect transition, because I do want to talk about something that just kind of eats at my crawl on any Facebook group. Um, what's your approach to managing and filtering out the anonymous member post about, well, if I paid this much for my kid to play at this club, is it okay? What do you think if they play basketball too? Should we get a discount? Some of these questions that are just like, are you serious? Like, did you read your question before you typed it, kind of thing? And then they are given the opportunity to hide behind an anonymous member status. Like, because anonymous member, that's a newer thing, right, within the Facebook
Yes.
group world.
And I used to allow anonymous posts, and I don't anymore.
Oh, okay, good,
Um,
good.
for that, mainly for that reason, it gets abused. There's obviously a good place to. I mean, I wish I could allow anonymous posts, because, parents, have questions about their specific situation, and but they don't want to be identified if, there's things like, maybe bullying, or,
Yeah,
any sort of issues. There are a lot of reasons, or if they're thinking that, their kid in developing at this club, and, maybe they're thinking about going somewhere else, and they're legitimate reasons to post anonymously, but it just gets abused. So the solution that I've kind of come up with is, if people message me, they can send me the post, and I'll post it for them, and
got it.
I'll put a title up, say like, "Let's help a group member out," and then they post, and those are quite popular. But when you leave it up to people to put anonymous posting, they'll just post anything,
Yeah.
and then you get the trolls who wanna rage bait people, with anonymous posts. And
Yeah, there's a few.
and I used to tell them, I say, well, I just comment under the post. I said, like, I'm gonna delete this post, but if if you want to post this, post it with your chest out.
So, so let me kind of create a compare and contrast, and let me get your take on this, and maybe a little bit of insight into your business, because obviously the Soccer Parent Lifestyle has is it a magazine, an actual printed magazine?
I do publish a monthly digital magazine.
Digital magazine. Okay. And then you've got the Facebook page, 40,000 members. How many subscribers on the magazine, if you don't mind me asking?
Not nearly enough. uh,
Yeah, okay.
uh,
Well, that's the PSA, people, if you're listening to this show.
yeah, a couple of hundred. I mean, my goal is to grow it to 1,000 by the end of this year.
Okay. So give me an idea of the difference between the two. Obviously, the Facebook page it allows for all third party posts and creates the conversations, and you've created the network. Soccer Parent Lifestyle magazine, the digital publication. What is the difference, or what is the focus within that? Is it segmented? Is it, is it hyper focused in a particular area? What does that look like?
Well, this year I've got about eight constant contributors. Got someone who focuses on nutrition. Got a physical therapist. Got a college coach that talks college recruiting. A mental performance expert. Um, a lady who deals with female athletes and their issues. A speed trainer. Um, yeah, I know I'm forgetting somebody else, and
Sure.
occasionally I write about parenting issues that we have in the group. I know I'm forgetting somebody, but I try to cover all the different aspects of youth soccer. So we just try to go deeper with people who are experts in that field that know what they're talking about. Um, One of the drawbacks of having a Facebook group is, I can ask a question and get 15 different answers. And so as a parent, sometimes it's like, well, who's right?
Right, right.
You,
Yeah.
because, if we're talking about, going to a showcase, you know, there'll be, you know, there'll be several to say, well, my kid got recruited this way, and somebody else say, well, my kid got best recruited this way, and say, well, the third parent will say, well, you need to go to ID camp, and the fourth parent will say you don't need to do any of that stuff,
Right.
and the fifth parent will say something else. And if you're a parent, you're sitting there like, well, who's right? So with the magazine, what I try to do is to provide expert advice in all the different areas from people who are not me, who are actual experts. And like I say, with the college coach and the mental performance expert. Oh, I have goalkeeper experts.
Okay.
So they talk about every issue we're going to have goalkeeping, we're going to have nutrition, we're going to have injury prevention from the physical therapists, we're going to have speed training, we're going to have nutrition. you
So,
know
so let me ask you just kind of a generic question, maybe, because at your lifespan with the initial group and now the current group, inevitably you've seen trends, or you've seen kind of what I'll call aha moments, right?
yes.
Kind of especially being a non-soccer person who has converted into kind of a preeminent soccer dad. I would argue you probably read more soccer content than U.S. national team coach does. Sorry, Poch. Um, what's something that's really stood out to you about the sport? Maybe about the parents. Maybe about the pathway. What area of the game, from a youth perspective, do you think or maybe is the one that just really kind of shocked you at how big it is, or how broke it is, or how unaware it is? What's the aha moment for you?
That Well, the one reason I think that I exist in the soccer world is the youth soccer world is so fragmented. I mean, there's and that's what I learned having a group, because not everybody does soccer the way North Carolina does. And
Right.
it's you have so many different experiences depending on where you're located, depending on what club you play for, what league you play for. The one thing there's way too many leagues. And the thing that my biggest aha moment, and a lot of people may not agree with me, but there there's too much profit motive in soccer. And now I'm not a parent that says that, every club is ripping us off, and we pay a lot of money for soccer. And for me, it was well worth the money for all the lessons my son learned
Right.
by playing soccer. And, if I had to do it, if, he was 5 years old now, he would go through the club system again. You
Hmm.
know, there would obviously be, different pathways that I would be privy to that I wasn't back then. But, I'm not complaining, about the pay to play system. We live in a capitalist society.
Yeah,
And
when I see those posts about that the biggest evil, I just kind of zoom out because I've been lucky. I've been able to go, frankly, all over the country with my kids, watching them play the game that I love, that they love. And you look at these facilities, and you look at these the staffs, you look at the quality of play. That shit's not free,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like it's there's a correlation between the two. Now, is it abused? Absolutely. In some
yeah,
markets, in some cases, it's abused, and even at really successful clubs, are they pushing the envelope a little too far? Probably, but there's the kind of this expectation, which leads me to a question for you. In your experience in watching the page and the conversations, and you kind of have, to a degree, you got a whole bunch of kids, right? Because these
yeah.
parents, these kids, where, what clubs are coming from. Do you think that the system in general is getting it right from a standpoint of elevating kids, challenging kids, better quality, more college pathway? If we just look at those generic, litmus tests, do you think they're getting it right?
I don't know if we're getting it right. We're getting it better than it used to be. Um, I don't know if it will ever be right, but it is improving, and there are a lot of people who are working to try to improve it. Um, the problem is we're in such a big country,
Yes.
and um, you know, in my opinion, the one thing that we're not getting right is that we're trying to professionalize kids a lot too early.
Okay, so this was one of the things I wanted to ask you because I read your bio. You didn't come from soccer. You played other sports. Speak to maybe your opinion as it pertains to, when these kids get into that U 10, 11, 12 age groups, and then they're at the club level and they're elevating. Talk about your opinion as to the importance or the detrimental effect of playing other sports, multi-sport athletes. Because as you well know from running that page, these clubs, they'll say they're seasonal, but let's be honest, that season is
No.
10, 11 months long,
Yeah.
which creates a traffic jam for families and children that are attempting or wanting to play other sports. Speak to that part of the equation, if you don't mind.
I would love to see kids play multiple sports. Um, I try to encourage my son to play multiple sports. He didn't want to, which is fine. If soccer's his thing, that's fine. But if he'd wanted to play something else, I would have been fine with it. Now I don't know if the club would have been fine.
Right.
I mean, we had conflicts a lot of times when he was playing ODP and playing for different soccer teams. So
Yeah.
we had conflicts within that area, but I think it's good for kids to play multiple sports. Um, and it's really good for kids to play multiple positions in soccer. One of the things I hear from parents all the time is, they got a 10-year-old, and my 10-year-old plays left back, and the coach moved him to
Yeah.
midfield, and I'm like, he's 10.
Yeah.
You know, he needs to learn the game. I think one of the greatest things for my son's development was playing for ODP because he played a different position than he played at club. It's good for kids to have, in my opinion, different coaches.
Yeah.
Um, I know a lot of people would prefer their kids start with a coach at U6 and go all the way to U18, and there may be some benefits to that. I don't know, but at a big club, my son never had a coach longer than one year.
Yeah.
It's fall and spring season, and I think it's good for them to get used to different coaching styles, and it just makes a much more well-rounded soccer player, and also a higher IQ soccer player that gets to see soccer from different positions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah. I had this discussion the other day with a couple of younger parents. I've got a third son who he's in that he's 2013, so he's at that U12 phase. As you well know, that the U11, U12, U13, it's such a unique age groups. I don't care where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're in a soccer market or
yes,
not. Because the reality of what's going on during those years, it's called puberty. And these
yes,
kids are growing, they're getting faster. The little chunky kid is all of a sudden, it's got a six pack. And we were talking, and these parents are like, "Man, I wonder if my kid is going to be a 6. I think he's I think he's built to be a 9." And I'm like, "Oh my God. Hey guys, little word of advice. Why don't you just build a little soccer player?" you know?
yes,
Um,
yes. Well, I posted a couple of times in the group and used my son as an example. When he went to high school, he was maybe 5'8", 130 pounds. He left high school 6'1", 190 pounds.
and you were all pissed off he wasn't playing linebacker.
I was pissed off he decided not to play in college, but
Yeah.
that's another story.
No, I mean to your point though, like you've watched it firsthand. I've watched. This is now my third, and I think this is something like if I were to give a little tip or word of advice to parents, because there's a million things for them to worry about, as evident on your
Yes,
page, right? Everybody's worried about
yes,
everything. I think, but within these ages, like just let them grow. Honestly, make them eat healthier, right? Get more sleep, eat better food.
yes.
Y-
As a parent, you have to try to control what you can control.
exactly.
You know, make sure they get their homework done. Um, try not to overschedule them. Um,
Hmm.
that's a big problem, in my opinion. Um, Try to get them some opportunities to play outside of the club, and I mean not necessarily organized, but free play.
Yeah.
Here in North Carolina, during between fall and spring seasons is usually like from the end of November till the end of January. Um, my son always played futsal and indoor soccer, and he did. He did some teams from our club. All their players played for a team.
Right.
My son just found a team to play for, so he got to play with different kids, um, and we didn't put any pressure on learn. That was fun time for him. I just take you to the game and you go play,
Yeah.
and it was the closest to free play we could get. And I talk a lot about it in our group. I live in a subdivision, 400 families, probably have 100 kids that play club soccer.
Yep.
Never see, never see any free pickup play. The kids playing together.
Look,
Um,
you're pulling at my heartstrings there because when I grew up, the reality is we were a soccer town, and come summertime, you did two things. You went to the pool in the morning. Your parents made you be on the swim team because I don't know, they just wanted to torture you. But then come noon, when it's 102 degrees here in the Midwest, and humidity's like 102%, you went to the park and you took your cleats, and it was shirts and skins until 5, 6 o'clock, and you played and you played and you played. And these kids, these kids don't do that. Like we as parents, the parents that, of your 40,000, 39,000 of them are clamoring to spend money for private training and these one-on-ones and all this other stuff. And if they could just find a little small group of 5, 6 kids that are all roughly this, frankly, they don't need to be the same age. Take them to a park, give them 2 pug goals, and say, have fun. And those kids at the end of a summer, I would argue, probably going to be
You're a
more.
better kid,
They're,
better
they're
player.
yeah, they're going to be better players. Like if I'm a coach, come fall, I want the kid that has learned how to win, not how to do the shifty 7 moves. Oh, that's my pulpit for the
Yeah.
day.
Well, that gets into lack of creativity of players, and
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, I think that's coached out of them. Just to give you an example, I can still remember this, although it happened 5 or 6 years ago. My son made an outstanding move on the field and assisted on a goal, and he was playing on the JV team in high school, and this was his freshman year in high school. He played that year on JV and varsity,
Mm-hmm.
but he was playing on a JV team, which he never trained with the JV team, so he didn't really have a relationship with the coach. But the coach pulled him out of the game and said, you should have made the pass to so and so. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
And he was like, when I didn't never talk to that coach much, but I asked him one time. I was like, "Well, what can Dante do to improve?" And he was like, "Dante's a fantastic player, but he plays with the ball sometime and freelances a little too much." And I'm like, "Well, soccer is it's a team game, but it's also 11v11, and it's 11 games of 1v1 a lot of times.
Right.
But freelancing is a part of soccer, or should be anyway."
Let's shift up just a little bit. Let's put on our therapist hats. Kind of
Okay.
the role that you play as moderator. Because we're gonna have some parents listening, probably some newbies, so to speak. If you had to break down maybe, 1 or 2 things that a new soccer parent that's at, let's assume they're at a club that they like. Let's assume that the fees they're not going to complain about the fees, and their kid is 6, 7, 8 years old, getting into that point where you can actually see soccer start to form. What are some of the things that you would tell a parent to pay attention to, whether it is how they engage with their child, even before and after practices or games, or what they say on the sideline, or what do they do in the off season? What are some tips and tricks that you would say to a brand new clean slate parent that is entering into this fray?
Well, the one thing I would tell them is to observe the practices, the training. Um, are it doesn't matter what the kids are doing, but are they standing in line, standing around a bunch, waiting, or are they you know, actually doing stuff? Are they always doing stuff with the ball? At young ages, the main thing is to have your kid fall in love with the ball.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens. Um, I would say that a big thing is, even if you know absolutely zero about soccer, go out in the backyard with them and kick the ball with them. Whatever, if it's just kicking the ball back and forth. But what I did with my son when he was little was, we didn't have a goal. I just I don't know, just found something in the backyard,
Yeah.
say that's the goal. You try to score, and I play defense. So, I didn't know the rules of soccer or anything, but I went out in the backyard and played with them.
Well,
That's
I want to interject because I absolutely want to reiterate and complement the vision for your first part of the answer, and that is, if you're a parent, go watch practices, watch the trainings. You hit it on the head, because this is what I see in my own personal experience. It's anecdotal to a degree within my own world, but I can say, if I were to weight a the top tier team to the second team, third, fourth, fifth, because we're at big clubs. The levels
Yes.
go way down. I will say there's a direct correlation between the volume of parents that are paying attention to the top tier teams, being larger than the volume of parents that are watching the lower level teams. And it could be, look, parents are busy. Maybe they're sitting in their car, getting their work done, doing whatever they need to do. But there is a connection there. And for me, watching training is, you're not really looking, oh, is my kid good or is my kid bad? What you're really kind of paying attention to, if you're really paying attention, who are the kids that are trying hard? Who are the kids that are listening to the coaches? Who are the kids when they run touches, when they do sprints, line to line to line, who's touching the line and who's cheating the line, right? All
Yes.
that little stuff, which is true in any sport, right?
Yes.
You're looking for that character. You're looking for who is the leader, and when parents, here we are. This is a full circle aha moment. If you are that parent at U12, 13, 14, and you're walking up to the coach and you're wondering why your kid isn't getting minutes, I'm going to bet you're not watching them at training.
True. True.
And there's a whole bunch of parents cursing my name right now on this episode. So no, I just think it's like, it's tremendous. I think you nailed the answer, just because there's a million different things you can do.
And that's what, you hear from a lot of coaches that, parents shouldn't watch training. You shouldn't. Now, you know, I have never at one of my kids' practices interrupted or tried to coach my kid, or I never say anything to him.
Right.
But I'm I I would say I probably watch, I know at least 80% of my kids' trainings throughout the time that he was playing. And a lot of times that's just so that I can be objective, when if my son came to me and said, well, I didn't get the playing time I thought I deserved. And I say, well, you know, I noticed you were goofing off during warm-ups
Yeah.
in training.
Right.
So, if I was a coach, I'd bench you too.
Yeah.
And,
Oh my
at
God.
least he knew that I was watching and paying attention. Um, and that's usually all I'd ever have to say to him. And the other thing that the one big thing that I always try to do as a parent was I never got on my son for a mistake. The only thing I ever got on my son for was a lack of effort.
Yeah.
I say you can control effort. In soccer, Messi has missed a goal right, a gimme goal right in front. You know, if you watch pro soccer at the highest level, they mess up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I never chastised my son for any mistake that he ever made on the field. Now, when he was on a team where, half the team would goof off during practice, if he joined that half, I'd say, well, you don't need to be over there with those guys.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. It's
and
fun.
fortunately, I never had to do that much, but
It's funny that you bring up the whole, not getting upset or not addressing a mistake. A friend of mine that I grew up with, he's a little younger than me, but he's the head coach over at Akron University. When I had him on, we were talking about it, and we specifically talked about kind of character, items that they look for in players, and he specifically brought up players that make mistakes. It's almost as if they seek that out when they go to recruit, or they go, they look at, a player they might be interested in. They're looking for those mistakes, because most importantly, what they're looking for, what do they do next? Okay, so if you have the ball and you make a horrible pass, it's a turnover, even and especially if it leads to a goal, etc. What do you do next? How do you handle the
Yeah,
next touch? Is it in your head? Can you recover? And it's really, really important. And I think parents they over focus, hyper focus on the missed shot or the turnover, and it's just all wrong. It's counterproductive.
yeah. Well, I always told my son that you know the more mistakes you make during the game, probably the better you end up playing. Um, you know, because my son went through a phase where he wouldn't take a shot unless he thought it was the perfect shot, and I'm like, there is no perfection in life.
Right.
He said, just let it go and see what happens.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, it's crazy. It's these kids, they're at the end of the day, they're trying to have fun. They're trying to be competitive, and for those that really have the competitive bone and a little bit of DNA, sky's the limit. But it takes a whole bunch of stars to align for that to occur in real time. And we as parents, like every single parent, thinks that everything is just this linear. Hey, if I'm paying $2,500 a year, my kid is going to go play at Clemson. Well, based on that maniacal laugh of yours there, I'm going to say you and I both know that is not the case.
yes.
Well, I tell you what, man, I've occupied enough of your time here on a Friday. I really appreciate you coming on, Buford. It's been, I love the perspective. I love the transparency in your pathway to the game and what you've been doing for it, and kind of your feedback. It's almost as if you've been reading your page's posts.
I do try to read every post, but I learned so much from having I have 40,000 teachers.
Yeah.
Um, everybody's kid is different. Every club is different. Every team is different. Um, that's one of the beautiful things about soccer is you you can have 20 games within one game.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. You're spot on.
And
For all of you listening, here's what we're going to do. You are going to go, if you haven't already, because I see actually a lot of your faces in the mutual friends of the page. Go to Soccer Parent Lifestyle on Facebook. Can't miss it. Does your son get royalties for all of the pictures of him being the?
I tell him that's just to pay me back for some of the six hundreds of thousands of dollars he owes me for
Well,
raising him.
so I was thinking about this earlier, knowing you were coming on. I'm like, man, I wonder if this kid has an NIL deal, because he's probably the most famous kid in in soccer Facebook groups. Cut that kid a deal, man. Well, hey, Buford, I appreciate you joining me. Hold on the line here. I'm going to wrap us up here and let our listeners go. But I appreciate your time. Soccer Parent Lifestyle, Facebook. Check it out. Go check out the publication, the blogs. Shit an old soccer dad says, or soccer guy says. I mean, no, I butchered the title there, but people will find it. I appreciate all your time, man.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome.